One two one two, 1212. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد إخوة الإسلام عباد الله. This is another open session that will be conducted in this brief hour, inshallah. And I want to touch on the issue of polygyny and its reality. And this is as a result of the attacks against polygyny, excuse me, by some of the most corrupt and immoral people in this society today, attempting to make polygyny an immoral issue. And the reality is, I saw the brother from Outstanding Personal Relationships over a year ago referred to polygyny as a pro-moral choice. And I think that the Muslims have to adopt this framing of polygyny because when you break it down into, or when you analyze the alternatives that are found in this society, and when you look into the benefits of polygyny, the wisdoms behind polygyny, it is the pro-moral choice. For that reason, I believe that the Muslims need to adopt phrases or wordings like this when combating and challenging those that seek to undermine al-Islam by taking something from al-Islam and attempting to make it look bad. And what we find what we find people doing, wa alaikum salam. No, I'm doing a live stream right now. Anyway, what we find people doing anyway, so like I said, I think it's important for us to adopt framing of this nature in order to combat the what the people are doing in that regard and trying to take something that's found in the religion and make it look a certain way in order to attack the religion in general. I remember one of the mashayikh, I remember one of the mashayikh, they made a mention about al-Islam and they likened it to a car. and they said that if you were to take certain parts of the car out and isolate that part alone, say, for instance, you take out the the, the oil pump or the oil filter, for instance. You take the oil filter, you set it out to the side. The oil filter alone, detached from the car, is not going to look like a part of the car that has any type of real importance, and it may even be something that a person wants to stay away from because of the oil that may be on it. They don't wanna get their hands dirty and thus forth and so on. And he was saying that you can't look at an aspect of Al-Islam, in that manner without looking at, the rest of Al-Islam. So you can't just like you can't take that car apart and look at it in a singular manner and actually appreciate that car part, yani the oil pump. You also you can't just take a look at it in a singular fashion. You have to look at how it complements, how it functions with the rest of the car in order for you to see the importance of that oil filter. And so when we look at the kuffar in this society, we find that the kuffar in this society are attempting to take aspects of al-Islam, that which is found in al-Islam, and trying to tarnish or mar specific aspects in an attempt to turn people away from al-Islam in general. This is what we find occurring amongst the kuffar today. And polygyny is one of those aspects of the religion in which they are attempting to uh, make the call of al-Islam be unpalatable to the people in the society today. And so this is why I said that the Muslims need to uh, we need to uh, when combating this type of propaganda, that we need to utilize phrases such as polygyny being the pro-moral choice, because the alternatives that are found within this society are nowhere up to par as it relates to polygyny and the wisdoms behind polygyny and the benefits that are found therein. And so when we're looking at the alternatives in this society, what do we have? What do we have amongst the people? Well, for one, we have one night stands. We have the side the side chick mentality, women being side chicks. We have mistresses. We have boyfriend, girlfriend relations. We have booty calls, and thus forth and so on. Those are the alternatives that are found within the society that are normalized with the people. They're normalized with the people. And on top of that, when I say they're normalized, they're looked at in a manner in an acceptable manner. But then if the issue of polygyny is brought up, this is something that is detrimental. This is something that's negative. This is something that's frowned upon. This is something that is shunned. This is something that should be avoided within this society. However, the alternatives or that which is normalized within the society are nowhere in comparison to what Islam promotes and what Islam encourages. There's nowhere in comparison to the to it. None of the options that I just mentioned, if we're now going to go into examples of how flawed the people and their thinking are in this society. And before I say this, I had a discussion with a person at work, and this particular discussion that we're dealing with tonight will give an example of what I'm referring to. I had a conversation with a person at work, dawah related, non-Muslim. The guy's father is like supposed to be some big time preacher, studied wherever he studied at, whatever. But at any rate, I made mention to him some of the places that I have been overseas, and I told him that, of course, when mentioning these places, that's not all over the world, but I told him, when I look at those 4 places that I've been overseas, and I compare it to the people that are here in America, I told him from my experience, I haven't seen a group of people as a collective with more characteristics of the people of the fire than what I find here amongst Americans. Americans as a collective people, their ideas and their thought process and their actions and what they deem to be okay and approve of, and what they disapprove of, and thus forth and so on. I have not seen a group of people exhibiting more characteristics of the people of the hellfire than what I find in America amongst the average American. Because that which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala loves and is pleased with, to the people is shunned, it's avoided, it's hated, it's looked down upon, and thus forth and so on. However, that which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala hates and is displeased with, they magnify that. They love that. They give preference to that. They show importance to that, and thus forth and so on, and thus forth and so on. And when we're dealing with male and female relations, being in relationships and things of this nature, you'll find that which is normalized within the society, that which is encouraged, that which people get brownie points off of, they like to brag about and things of that nature, all of it is displeasing to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. All of it. But if a man reaches the age of 18, 19, 20, he's a virgin, and he says, "I'm safeguarding my chastity and will only allow myself to indulge in sexual relations after marriage, keeping in accordance with the command of Allah and seeking the pleasure of Allah," and that person, he's gonna be weird, he's gonna be gay. With the people, he's either gay, weird, or whatever else they may say about him. He's trying to stay away from filth and immorality, and they're looking down upon a person of that nature. So, when looking at this particular making this particular point, let's take a look at the alternatives for a second. A one-night stand, or being a side chick, or being a mistress, boyfriend and girlfriend relations. None of these options builds a stable family. None of them builds a stable family structure. None. A one-night stand, it's possible that a woman may get pregnant, from a one-night stand, and most likely if she has a one-night stand with a man, she probably doesn't even know the guy's name, let alone his full identity to be able to identify if he's a father or not. None of those options builds a stable family structure. That's 1. 2, none of these options gives women their rights. Being a mistress, a woman doesn't get her rights, 'cause she can have children from a man, but she's a secret. And so now her children, she has to be kept in the closet, and the children that she has are likewise kept in the closet. They may not even know their siblings from the wife that the man is actually dealing with, publicly, in the public with everybody. This type of promiscuous nature, the hit and run for fun is the 3rd. Hit and run for fun, and that's what for so on. This promiscuous type of nature, it encourages, or it aids or assists in the spreading of STDs, sexually transmitted diseases. It aids in that. So, when looking at polygyny polygyny does away with all of these negatives and ills that come about from the alternatives that are magnified in society today. The alternatives to polygyny, the alternative negative alternatives to polygyny that are magnified in this society today, the act of polygyny cuts all that, or marriage in general. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He states, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. Allah says, "Do not come near as zina. Undoubtedly, it is immorality, an immoral act in an evil way, in an evil way." And this particular act of zina, there are a lot of negatives that are attached to it. There are a lot of negatives that are attached to it. We just mentioned STDs. STDs, the spreading and the spreading of STDs amongst the people. This is a negative that is produced from as zina. And so, but one of the sad realities that we find in the society or from amongst people within the society is equate they try to equate being a mistress or being a side chick with being a co-wife, as if they're equal in any way whatsoever. No, a co-wife is known amongst the people. Amongst the other family of the or families that the man may have, she's known. So she gets to enjoy the fruits of marriage. She's not a secret, and thus, whatever duties that are obligated, for yani rights that are obligated, that's to be bestowed upon her, they're safeguarded. They're safeguarded, and she's protected as a Muslim woman in marriage, although her husband may have another family or 2 or 3. She's protected from STDs because she's only dealing with one man like they're only dealing with one man. That's for so on. The children know who the fathers are. The children know who their siblings are. The siblings interact with one another. So the alternatives that are normalized within the society, in reality, don't compare to this legislation. They pale in comparison. They pale in comparison. Now, one of the stupid things that we hear from amongst the kuffar, as they attempt to turn people away from polygyny or turn people away from Islam by bashing polygyny, is they'll say that Islam allows for a sex-craved man to have his cake and eat it too. And so they're equating polygyny with a man just being sex-craved and fulfilling his desires with multiple women. This is one of the most stupid and ignorant arguments I have ever heard for anybody to put forth that claims that they're intelligent. We're living in a society where if a man is truly sex craved, he doesn't have to get married to have sex. This is America. There's prostitutes, there's escorts, there's strip clubs, and whatever else I can't think of at the moment. There are all these options for a man to sleep with women in a society. Why how could it be said that a man who marries a woman and then marries another woman, that practice is nothing more than a sex-craved man fulfilling his desires. In this society, we're gonna buy that weak and lame attack against al-Islam? In this society? Like I said, if a man is really sex craved, He literally doesn't have to get married to get sex. Why would any sex-craved man get married if he's all about sex? You're attaching yourself to the women that you marry. The fickle women of this society, you don't have to attach yourself to them in that magnitude to just fulfill your lowly desires, to be quote unquote if you're quote unquote sex craved. This is one of the weakest arguments I've ever heard anybody try to make against the legislation of polygyny. Because when a man marries a woman, regardless if he marries 1, 2, 3, or 4, he's not getting the aspect of her. He's he is or she is giving all of herself to him. So he's dealing with all of her, including the responsibilities of maintaining her. Why would a sex-craved man who only cares about sex do something like that? So the argument is weaker than the house of the spider, as is commonly stated. Now, polygyny, when we look into history, polygyny was something that was very common, just like slavery, because people in this modern time have forgotten the reality that slavery was a world issue. In human history, slavery was a world issue. Africans were enslaving Africans, Arabs were enslaving Arabs, Europeans were enslaving Europeans, and they were enslaving everybody else. Africans were enslaved other than Africans, Arabs would enslave other than Arabs, Europeans would enslave other than Europeans. This reality is forgotten by people in the society today. But just like this particular affair is forgotten, likewise, the fact that polygyny is was very common in human history, that aspect of history has been forgotten as well. And it's sad because in this society, people like to claim this is a Judeo-Christian society. If this is truly a Judeo-Christian society, then how can this point be forgotten? Especially considering the fact that the Bible itself mentions prophets and messengers who were polygynists and people who weren't prophets and messengers. When we go to the Bible itself, and we look at some of the prophets and messengers of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, we find that, for instance, Ibrahim. Ibrahim had 2 wives. He had 2 wives. And in fact, in Genesis, 6 chapter 16, verses 1 through 3, you'll find that, of course, we know Sarah was his wife, and then she gave Ibrahim her concubine to be taken as a wife, and it's made clear and explicit within that text. Within that text, as they spell it, Hagar, 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 I believe that's how it's pronounced with them. But at any rate, it's clear and explicit within their text that she was giving her concubine to him to be his wife, to be his wife. Ibrahim was clearly a polygynist. He had 2 wives. When we go into other aspects of the book, we find that Yaqub, he also had 2 wives. It's stated that he also had 2 wives, and Likewise in Genesis, Dawood or David had 7 wives. He had 7 wives, and they mention these wives by name in one part of the book, and the children that were produced from them by Allah's permission in another part of the book. Solomon or Suleiman had 700 wives and 300 concubines. And they even had, because these are prophets and messengers. Some people may say, "Oh, well, those were high value." And I hear these red pill idiots, when they make the claim of history and people, men always have multiple wives. They always mention, I guess, who they consider to be high value men because they mention heads of state, leaders, heads of state, sultans and leaders, Genghis Khan and people of this nature. But polygyny wasn't just restricted to those men, those types of men, leaders within the society. The Bible mentions a person, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, Elkanah. This man had 2 wives. This man had 2 wives. He wasn't from amongst the prophets, neither the prophets nor messengers, and Allah knows best. When we go into the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we find that the people were accepting Islam. In one situation, a man had 10 wives. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him to release X amount and hold on to X amount. Hold on to the 4, release the 6. Another narration where a man, if I'm not mistaken, had 8 wives, release 4, re and, keep 4. So when looking at human history, it was common that men had multiple wives, and this was a reality that was known to the women of those times. The women of history, within history, understood the nature of men. They understood the nature of men. Now, I would encourage the brothers and sisters to go back to the video, "You're Not Enough for Him" or "You're Not Enough Woman for Him" on this channel, and in that particular video, it I expound on the nature of man and how man craves things, and if he obtains it, naturally he craves more, and without a doubt, from that which man craves from provisions of this dunya are women. Women are something that men crave. You get one, you want another one. You get 2, you may want a 3rd. You get 3, you may just crave for a 4th. But once you get 4th, you have to be content with that because you can't go beyond that. So women understood the nature of men back then. This is why you could find a woman offering her concubine to her husband, like in the story of Ibrahim and Sarah, because she understood the nature of a man, that a man, yani, craves more. If he had a mountain of gold the size of a pile of gold like Mount Uhud, he would still crave another. He would still crave another just like it. This is the nature, of man. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has prescribed that man can fulfill that craving in a way that's pleasing to him. How is that? Marry a second, or a third, or a fourth, if you so choose. But to fulfill one's desire in any other way besides that, then that will be transgressing Allah's set boundaries or limits. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He teaches us in His noble book, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ, and those that are guarding their private parts. إِلَّا عَلَى أَزْوَاجِهِمْ أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ غَيْرُ مَلُومِينَ, except with their wives or that which their right hands possess, then they are those in which there is no blame. فَمَنِ ابْتَغَى وَرَاءَ ذَلِكَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْعَادُونَ. Whoever goes beyond that, beyond, fulfillment of their, يعني, f indulging in, pleasuring themselves outside of these routes that were just mentioned, whoever goes beyond that, then they are those who have transgressed. They are those who have transgressed, right? So, the reality is the nature of man was something that was well known in human history, and the reality is that man can either has a choice. He can either fulfill that which Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala has placed in him of these natural desires in a lawful way that's pleasing to Allah, or in a way that is displeasing to him. The way that is pleasing to him is clearly mentioned within those verses, within those verses. Whereas whatever transgresses that, whatever transgresses, yani that which is mentioned in those verses, then that is falling into that which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is displeased with. And so this is the reality as it relates to this particular subject matter. And the reality is the whole concept of monogamy, that which is promoted in the West. The mushrikeen from amongst the Romans and the Greeks were those who were distinguished with this. We're looking at history. We're looking at history. The the Romans and the Greeks were the only ones who were distinguished with this, with monogamy, alright? And so, for anybody to be pushing monogamy as if it's going to be that which does away with social ills that are taking place in society and thus forth and so on, and they are doing nothing more than pushing the ways of the mushrikeen. Because when I say the ancient Greeks and Romans, that's what I'm referring to, the mushriks amongst them, the liberals and these liberal ideas that we find in society today, they they have their foundation with the ancient pagan Romans and Greeks who were distinguished as a people for monogamy, who were distinguished as a people for monogamy. Now, before I continue, because I believe I was making a very relevant point, why do I openly speak about women? What are you talking about? What in the world are you talking about? What woman have I openly spoken about? There are more important topics, Barakallahu feekum. You don't like this topic, you can exit stage left. My channel is not here to cater to you. I just noticed that you always talk about marital stuff. You need to go check my channel. There's a whole lot more stuff on my channel than marital issues. But the reality is the communities that I come out of, our marriages are not lasting. That's why I'm dealing with this issue. So maybe in your community, Vladimir, wherever you're from, Vladimir Putin, with this weirdo name, weirdo fake name. Wherever community you come out of, maybe there's other things going on. But Vladimir, you seem to be so weak in your email, you can't even put your actual name up here. So why should I care what you have to say? Capiche? So you can exit stage left with that foolishness. But people in my community, in the communities I come from, the marital issues are a big issue, and that's why I've been dealing with this stuff lately. Because if you notice, I don't have a whole lot of time to be on the internet like that anyway. When I do things, it's at this point now every so often, but it's motivated by things that are occurring right in my community. So whatever your name is, because we know your name isn't Vladimir Putin, we know your name isn't Vladimir Putin, but so whatever your name is, that's why I'm talking about this. If you don't like it, you can exit stage left. You don't have to be here. Who told you to sit here and listen to this? Talking about you want the best for me. If you want the best for me, come with some better criticism. You don't have to be here. You wanna criticize from a comment section in the live chat. Get real. So anyway, that's the point anyway. So that's the point of what I was basically stating as it relates to polygyny. We find that the kuffar in this society that are affected or influenced by ancient Greek and Roman concepts and practices attempt to attack Islam by way of attacking polygyny. Take an aspect of what is in Islam, remove it from the rest, attempt to mar or deface it in an attempt to turn people away from Al-Islam. But the reality is the doubts that they throw in the minds of the people, as I stated earlier, are weaker than the house of the spider because the alternatives that they're coming with are in reality, that they don't fix any of the societal problems, 1, and 2, they're a detriment to the people. They're a detriment to the family structure. They're a detriment to the society. The phenomena of single mothers and baby mamas and thus forth and so on, this is a detriment to the society. This isn't a benefit for the society. And so any attempts to try to disprove Islam by looking at this aspect are feeble and weak to say the least. Feeble and weak to say the least. And so when we as Muslims deal with these people trying to throw these doubts, then it's like I said, we have to use framing like those brothers use. Polygyny is a pro-moral choice. And the alternatives that you guys have with you, that you normalize, that you promote, that you propagate within the society, these alternatives are immoral and are nowhere in comparison to that which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has allowed. To that which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has allowed. And with that, Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. My time is just about up. With that, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.